Hey guys, welcome back to We Do Game Stuff. Today we're going to do another Bro Smacktalk on Microsoft. We promised we'd do it in the last video.
What you gotta say like that, man?
What are you talking about?
Microsoft. Sorry about that. Anyway, yeah, we did a Sony Smack Talk video last time. We wanted to go ahead and just bash on basically Microsoft at this point because we did Sony, but that does not mean that Microsoft is without
Innocent.
fault.
Yeah, they got their own issues, you know. All of the Xbox One launch, big issue.
They didn't do so hot with the Xbox 360 launch too. And that's one thing we're going to talk about today is basically what happened into the past and making sure they don't repeat it into the future, but they've kind of already done that with both the 360 and the Xbox One. Right, so basically one thing we wanted to talk about is how Xbox has really kind of failed these generations because they have been really greedy and tried to do things that is a little out of the norm. So for instance, what I can say for by greedy is that Xbox tried to compete with Sony in the Xbox 360 age with trying to get a console out before it was ready. Which, if a lot of you owners out there that may have had the original Xbox Fats, the old fat white Xboxes, they were just poorly designed. They had air conditioning issues, which caused red ring of deaths a lot, that would just cause overheating issues. It would melt wires on the inside. The red ring of death would happen because it just had poor hardware to begin with. And one thing a lot of people didn't enjoy was paying a premium price, paying close to $400 for like a 20 gigabyte console.
But back in the day, 20 gigabytes was massive.
Right, but I mean 20 gigabytes back then when you could go to PlayStation that had an even higher amount of like space that you could get starting off. Granted, it was a lot more expensive. It was $600. But at least PlayStation started off with pre-installed Wi-Fi adapters. So you could pick it up, go home, hook it up, connect it to your Wi-Fi, boom, you're ready to play. On the Xbox Fats, that wasn't an option. You had to buy a $100 adapter on top of the console. So Xbox would market it and be like, oh yeah, it's $400 to get our console with 20 gigabytes. That's a lot of space, right guys? Heck yeah. Till you find out later, it was poorly designed, poorly optimized console that just in generally fell apart after really only a few months of use. Which you can see that they replaced so many Xboxes in their lifetime that it ate up a good chunk of their profits.
Jeez.
But imagine paying $400 for a console that's going to break on you then in a real high chance of 6 months after getting the console, and then it didn't even have Wi-Fi installed. Your only option was to either go buy another $100 adapter on top of the $400 console that you smack onto the back of it, or you could plug it directly in, which wasn't an option for everybody. Imagine trying to choose between Xbox and PlayStation. It just was a terrible choice. Of course, Sony kind of kept it together and they, made a console that was pretty good. They got backlash for the $600 that cost to get that console starting off for the higher spaced one. But most people just went for the cheaper option where it still had the Wi-Fi option and just not as much space. Because back then, downloading digital games wasn't as big of a deal.
Yeah, most games were a couple 100 megabytes.
Right.
So on to the Xbox One X. When that was announced at E3, they came out, this big spectacle, right? And the first thing, I swear to God, they said was, this is not a gaming console. It's an entertainment system.
Oh, with the Xbox One. Okay.
Yeah. That's it, One X?
Yeah. So with the Xbox One, you're right. They came out and was basically like, hey, that demographic that's looking to buy our console? We're not worried about you. We're worried about everybody else.
Yeah, I remember it came with the capability of plugging in your cable box into it and use your Xbox as a cable box. That was stupid.
I could actually bring that in here for reference for you guys if you wanted to see it. It on the back legitimately has a cable aux cord attachment that you would be able to screw your aux cord on, and the idea behind it was that your Xbox would become a cable device. Who on God's given earth would choose to use that as a cable box?
I think I knew one person we met playing Destiny who did it. Evil Rock maybe, or no, it was Dragon. That's who it was. Yeah. Dragon. Yeah, he did it. You see him on Xbox TV all the time. One person out of all the people I've ever met on Xbox, the only person I've ever met who did that.
I don't even know how it would work in a lot of cases because the idea behind it, or at least how it was explained, is that you would hook your cable into it and you would play cable through your Xbox. However, most cable companies supported their own individual cable boxes. So if you didn't have it, in most cases, it wouldn't even work.
Yeah, you had to have a cable box on top of having an Xbox and running your cable through your cable box to your Xbox. It's a whole extra step that didn't need to be used.
In some cases, depending on what services you use. Some services would allow you to just plug it straight in and use it. However, in most cases, if you have cable, you already have a cable box. There's no need to use the Xbox. It doesn't make any legitimate sense.
Right, and the main demographic for people, especially at E3, the biggest gaming conference in the entire world, is to promote your next console for the gamers. No one's there to see a fucking cable box. It's stupid.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it really, really killed them when they came out the door saying, basically, this is not a gaming console. We're trying to go towards everybody. Here's another thing. We're forcing a $100 additional attachment on this. So every Xbox is going to be sold for another $100 than it would have been without the attachment. And it was the Xbox Kinect. It was a failing subject that people really didn't care about from the Xbox 360 era. It didn't do well, and they tried to force it on everybody with the Xbox, One. And here's the issue with it. Most people would be like, oh, well, I would just worry about getting an Xbox without the Kinect. Not an option at the time. Even if you were to try and buy it off somebody who was like, you know what, I'll keep the Kinect for myself. I have a spare Xbox, whatever the reason may be, and they tried to sell it $100 less. When you would get online, it would freak out and tell you cannot get online until you hook up the Kinect.
It wasn't on all the time, too?
Yeah, you had to always have your Xbox connected to online services. If you didn't, the Xbox would not start. It would start up and tell you to connect to the internet.
It is absolutely crazy how they managed to sell as many consoles as they did. That is bad.
Well, that's because they backtracked shortly after. Now, the issue with it was that, especially with their PR that they had that day, because I don't remember what reporter it was, but they came up and was talking to them about the Xbox One, and they were like, okay, not everyone has internet connecting, internet connectivity. Like
yeah,
some
I
people
remember
don't.
that interview.
Right, so what happens is they go up to this guy and they're talking to one of the Microsoft reps, and the Microsoft rep, plain Jane, says, if you don't have internet, we have a console for you. It's called the Xbox 360. So he was basically like, look, you don't have the Xbox One? Is what it is.
Oh, God. It's Microsoft. God.
I mean, Sony basically came out and won that E3 by walking out and saying, hey, you see that guy? You see what they're doing? We're not doing any of that.
That's what Obsidian did when they announced a new game, The Outer Worlds. They're like, we're the ones who did Fallout New Vegas. We're not the other ones.
Good.
I mean, it's the same thing that Sony did.
It looks good.
It does look good. But yeah, Sony came out and said, we're not going to do what they did. We're going to do everything opposite. And for all we know, they could have been doing the same thing. I think Microsoft went out first. They're like, okay, scrap all that. We're changing it right now.
Yep, and PR-wise, they won that console because of it. And honestly, in my opinion, that gave them the springboard that they needed, because there were people jumping ship off of Xbox to go to PlayStation, because PlayStation was like, hey, we're not charging you more than our competitor, not forcing equipment on you, and we're actually a gaming console and we're looking to create games for you. We're looking to have a platform for you to play. Not Xbox, where Xbox just went, no, I'm good. It's for everybody.
We're good with the 10 people who's going to buy this console. Whatever.
Right. Even I had no interest in it. Once it was announced and that was what happened, I was like, no, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think either one of us bought an Xbox One for a long time.
Nope, not at all. They did a Assassin's Creed Unity bundle that came out way later, and I bought it.
And that game didn't work either.
Yeah. Recently, I bought an Xbox One X though, and I got the Gears of War 5 limited edition console. Beautiful console. Beautiful. I love it.
It's a great console. The Xbox One X is a phenomenal console.
They really did fix everything.
We talked about it in our Sony video about the hardware differences between the One X and the PS4 Pro. So we don't really need to harp on it too much, but
no. We'll link that video in the description.
But mainly, it's that the Xbox One X is vastly superior to the PS4 Pro. I mean, he's got an old 1080i TV.
Yeah, it's not
looks great though.
Right. All right. So now that we've kind of talked a little bit about how they did their launch, of course they kind of flopped. It looks like they always have a hard time getting their running start.
Yeah.
But once they get rolling, Microsoft usually gets back on the ball. It doesn't always work for them, but they get along. Now, one thing that Microsoft has a problem with as well is that Microsoft has a bad habit of not having good games for their console.
They're exclusives.
Right, so there are good games, and of course there's the general games that everyone will have. Dark Souls, whatever. There's many games out there. What is it? GTA
Overwatch,
5.
GTA 5.
Right.
Apex Legends. Every console has those.
Right. So there's those console games, and Microsoft's got a bad habit of not having good exclusives. Like, realistically, they have the Halo series, they have the Gears of War series, and they have like the Fable series, for instance. But here's one thing that we want to touch on is that Microsoft buys up companies and has a bad habit of closing them as well.
They like absorb into what's now called the Xbox Game Studios, which is who makes like the Gears games, the Halo games. It's all one big studio now. It's like an umbrella term. So they purchased Lionhead Studios. This is some of them. Compulsion Games, Mojang, people who made Minecraft. Ninja Theory, Rare, and Obsidian Entertainment. So those are the kind of the bigger ones they bought up and absorbed into Microsoft Game Studios to make whatever game that Microsoft wants to make. Not games that the studio wants to make, but what Microsoft wants.
Right, and we had the paper there so we could actually look up a lot of them and have them already written down because there's just actually a lot of them out there.
I think there's 20 different studios they bought.
Right, and they got a bad habit of getting those studios and canceling games. Like, for instance, Fable 4, we ended up seeing the death of Lionhead Studios on that.
Yeah, that was a big one. They closed it down completely, and they were working on Fable 4, and that was turned into Fable Legends or something.
Now, one thing I will give is that Fable 4 was in a development hell. Yeah. So Fable 4, actually, if you know the story, it went through a few different iterations. It went from being essentially another sequel to where it all of a sudden was going to be like a tabletop D&D kind of thing where a bunch of players try to defeat one DM basically who's a god that tries to stop them on their way to it. Then it turned into a MOBA. Then it turned into
free-to-play, like Battle Royale kind of game.
Right. It went through a lot of different changes for no real reason. So I can understand why they decided to do away with it. But realistically, as of right now, they don't have any plans to resurface that game. And
they did say they are working on it.
Right.
But we don't know how far working on it means. It could just mean they have the name on a whiteboard.
And I mean, they said the same thing about a game like Scalebound, for instance. Scalebound was a game that was highly anticipated. It was a game that I really wanted. They were accepting pre-orders at GameStop for this.
It was in its beta, I think. It was getting ready to have a beta. And they announced just randomly, like on a Tuesday, that, hey, Scalebound's canceled with no plans of ever bringing it back. It was almost done.
Yeah, I mean, we had full gameplay trailers. There were demos that were at, I don't think it was E3, but there was some gaming convention that was out there.
They had gameplay stuff for it. They had a beta that was going to come out. I mean, it was almost done. Like a couple more months of development been done, and they cut it. They have no assets that they're going to use for anything. It's weird. It was a cool game. You're playing as this semi-dragon dude with a dragon pet, and you're going around just beating up monsters.
I mean, the hype behind the game was was really out there, and that was what Xbox really needed, was another good exclusive that would get people turning the tide towards them. Because with Sony, Microsoft is just lagging behind. Sony has the Naughty Dog Studios that come out with several different games, like there's
Last of Us,
Uncharted, and then you've got other games like God of War. You've got what else do they have? I mean, they have so many different things. They have the Yakuza series. They've got the Persona series. I mean, there's just X, Y, Z, et cetera, things where you're not going to find any other thing but PlayStation that's going to have it. Mm-hmm. And especially if you're an anime gamer, where if you like to play games based in anime
or just in Japan
or just JRPGs in general, you're looking at Sony. If you want a gaming console with a great gaming library that really can't be found anywhere else, PlayStation's where you're at. Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate to say, I wish Microsoft did have better console gaming, but they don't.
Yeah, we're big anime game and JRPG fans. Big fans. We love the Persona series. It's great. But we can't play on the Xbox. And there's no plans to ever bring it to the Xbox. Microsoft has probably no desire to ever bring it on.
Right, and like here's a big one right here actually in behind us, is you got this is the Stormblood, this is the Stormblood DLC for the Final Fantasy XIV. However, this is something I really wanted to see actually come to Xbox, and we'll never see it, unfortunately, for whatever reason.
Microsoft says they don't want it. Don't know why.
Right. So I mean, you've got this. That's another exclusive to Sony, technically, if you don't include the PC on it. But
still,
right.
Console-wise, it's an exclusive.
And one thing we got to touch on is a fact that, realistically speaking, Sony's out there really investing in the VR universe. Microsoft is kind of not caring about it.
I think they said they weren't interested in it because they didn't see a future in it, which I beg to differ. I think VR and AI games, or not AI, but AR games are the next big step in gaming.
I would argue that VR games probably are a means to an end. I would say there's not a future in VR, but I would say that VR is a stepping stone to another platform that we've yet to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think AR video games would be the next big thing, where you take a section of your house and get into a video game. That would be the next logical step after VR.
I can agree. But yeah, I mean, so far we've covered a good few things about Microsoft. Realistically, this is kind of like a before and after kind of thing. We've covered Microsoft's past, how it's repeated itself, with the little stupid mistakes it's made, little hardware issues and so on and so forth. And then we moved on to them, not having a good library, to where they're not really interested in moving into certain technologies that we would like to see them in. Mm-hmm. And in generally just canceling games that had a great future ahead of them, but they just didn't see the worth in it.
Yeah.
Realistically, I guess what we're worried about is what can Microsoft do differently to basically not continue to move in that same direction where they try and push the envelope, but in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I think they learned a lot from the launch of the Xbox One, how much backlash they got. I think with the Scarlet is the new one coming out, right? I think it's Project Scarlet, right?
The Project Scarlet was the code for the original Xbox One X.
Whatever it is. So the next console, I think they're really leaning towards to make this the strongest video game console. That's it. Nothing fancy, just the strongest console. And whatever PS5 is going to do with its V-shaped bullshit, Microsoft's going to come out with a black box like they did last time, make it just jam-packed full of shit. And it's going to be awesome, I hope.
If you've ever held an Xbox One X in your hand, the Xbox One X is about 40% smaller than the original fat Xbox that everyone knows. And it's
heavy.
It is a heavy console. When you pick it up, you will be deceived on how small it is. You
defend your home with that thing.
It is so small, but it's so heavy. And you're probably right. You could beat a guy to death with that, and it probably wouldn't be dented. So, really what I want to see from Microsoft is a next generation that we focus on this being a gaming console. We focus on this being for the gamers. Don't ostracize the people out there who also aren't gamers or not super big gamers, but let's focus on the demographic, the people who actually buy your console. If I wanted to, focus on being everybody and use my thing as an all-in-one console, I'd go buy I don't know, what do they call them? Amazon Fire Stick?
Fire Cube or Roku.
Something like that. I'm not worried about buying a $400 or $500 console if I'm going to be.
Yeah, your day ones aren't going to be the guys like, I'm going to use this as my cable box.
Right.
No one did that.
So, realistically, I don't want to see Microsoft doing that. What I want to see Microsoft doing is coming out strong, saying, these are our specs, this is what we're expecting. We have a gaming console for gamers, have a decent lineup ready, and because they bought all these studios that we've been seeing, that we talked a little bit about earlier in the video, that they're going to come out. I'm hoping that they come out strong with good exclusives from these companies. They've already
announced the next Halo game. That's the first thing they announced this past E3, I think. Mm-hmm. They're like, okay, we're going to show you a small promo for the new Xbox, and then here's the new trailer for the next Halo game. And it looked awesome. It looked really good. So that's a strong launch title.
And I want to see a lot more strong launch titles coming from the other companies that they bought up. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see Microsoft repeating the same thing. I want to see them get out there, make a strong console, make a console that's not really super expensive, something that's not $600 or $700. I want to see them come out with a strong library at start. Even if it's a few games, I still want to see a strong library, and I want to see that library take off. And I want to see Microsoft take some chances. They can afford to.
Yeah, absolutely. They can not as many chances as they want, but they can take a lot of chances. And depending on how well this launch goes, it determines really if they win this next console war. Sony's already got a good head start because of the last two generations, so they got to come out onto that stage swinging, slapping their knees with their dicks, man, and come out swinging, balls to the wall, man.
They're really gonna have to come out swinging on everybody.
Yeah, 100%. They can't hold anything back. They got to bring out all the big guns. I mean, they could announce the new Halo game, Forza, if people still play Forza, next Gears of War game, exclusive like From Software game like Sony did, so stuff like that. That would be awesome.
But before we get on and rambling too much about all the things that we want to see, we want to know what you want to see. We want to know what you think you want to see with the new generation of Microsoft's Xboxes. And we want to see what you think is going to be the future. If you think it's going to flop, if you think it's going to be good, if you think the console is just plain Jane not worth it and it's worth to just switch to PlayStation.
But yeah, we want to know your thoughts.
But just make a comment down below. You know, we'll try and reply back to it if we ever have the time to actually look at it.
If we ever get any comments.
But thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time at We Do Game Stuff.
It's Bro Smacktalk.